my concern first and foremost will be about the person making the call. You know, if you want to spend 10 minutes on a call with me, please get in touch. We can talk about whether it's you or whether it is somebody that you love who's struggling with addiction. My name's Michelle Morris. As you know, I am an addiction therapist. I trained in solution-focused hypnotherapy, and it changed my life. As we can't bear to see our loved one in any predicament, we carry on covering up for them for far too long. And, don't blame yourself for this. Love and enabling are very, very similar in a way, but enabling is harmful. We've all learned about tough love. We've all learned about tough love. The reason we have the saying tough love, or the reason people do tough love to others, is that sometimes it works, If they're in your house, what do you do? Because if they become homeless, will their predicament get worse? And in some cases, unfortunately, it does. But their lives are not ours to gamble with, are they? Our life is important to us, and we should look after ourselves first. You can't pour from an empty cup. You really can't. You really need to shore up some of those resources for yourself. You see, it can happen, and we can start making excuses as the enabler will do, We knew this person before the addiction. The addiction doesn't define them, so therefore, why are we withdrawing resources from them? Why are we no longer taking them to an appointment? Or why are we no longer covering for them at work? Why are we no longer giving them money, giving them £20 a day? It's because if the person using does not experience the natural consequences, then they will think there haven't been any, because their usage means they might not remember that patch of time. I remember a client coming to me and saying, they've told their loved one time and time again that if they continue to go to the pub and drink every Friday and Saturday night, they will leave. And I said, did you go? No. Well, how are they going to learn? How are they actually going to learn that you won't be there cooking the tea unless you actually do leave? We have this idea as well of this kind of idea that we can be flippant around alcohol, particularly. Let's have a cheeky McWeekie. It's a Wednesday night and you've got a bottle of wine. Hump day. Oh, Tuesday. Well, we had an after work event, so I've got to have a glass of wine. It becomes every night, and that kind of repeated use can become problematic. I think in this middle stage, what part of the delusion is the idea that the person who's becoming addicted or a problematic user has at this stage, where they kind of know deep down. I knew deep down I was drinking too much wine during the week, and I didn't want to be doing that anymore. They kind of realise, perhaps deep down, perhaps underneath the BS they come out with, they possibly kind of understand that they may have a problem inside. However, it's really difficult then for them to talk to anybody about it, because the wish, the desire is for the memory of what the drug or the alcohol used to do at the time when they could take it, and it was still great fun. And as the consequences build for the addict in your life, the idea that they will get back to this fun usage slips further and further away. Perhaps they do start to suffer the natural consequences that you've tried to shield them from. And eventually you are going to drown yourself unless you wake up, realise that this kind of support is not support at all. It doesn't support you. It does not support your person that you love who is misusing drugs or alcohol. It perpetuates that cycle of addiction. You both start to revolve your lives around the addiction or avoiding the relapse. You cannot settle into a way of being. I was watching something else the other day, and for the life of me, I can't remember what it is. I should have written it down. And they were talking about this tough love idea, and kicking someone out when they're down is a very difficult thing to do, particularly, and in many cases the outcomes are worse for alcoholics and drug addicts if you kick them out of your home. However, I did hear somebody say, that their enabler had given an ultimatum or a choice. Now, this can be really useful because as an enabler, it can make you feel like, yes, you did give an adult choice back to the person. For example, I can take you to a support meeting. That's fine. I'm not dealing with you while you're drunk, and then you can walk away. So here's the thing. If you find it too difficult to remove that person from your life, a choice is actually quite an interesting thing that you can explore. For example, when you're ready to engage with sobriety or whatever it is, when you're ready to resume your adult responsibilities, when you want to talk to me about recovery, I'm all in. I'm here. I'm still here. Until that day, I can't help you anymore. And that's it. Be aware that if you have developed codependency or enabling, it's got to be you. You've got to face this yourself, just as the addict has, and you've got to be the one that starts to change the situation before they can. They won't see the problem if you've shielded them. Please put your comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'm a new channel. Every like, every share tells the YouTube algorithm that this is content from a human and that you liked it and that I deserve some support and that the addicts and the enablers and the codependents out there deserve some support. Please like, share, and subscribe. I need your comments, please, in here, because I'm hoping to do some lives. I am hoping that I'll have enough material from you that you want me to go live and I can answer some of your questions. This is be a supportive environment. I remember I had a really difficult experience in my 20s when I was living with an alcoholic and a drug addict, and what I'd done was classic textbook. I was a young woman having a fabulous time living in a very big city. I came across a man who I thought was really interesting, but the signs were there. He didn't have much of a backstory, didn't come from this part of the world, and very few friends, and started to infiltrate himself, and I ended up going out with him. Within a month, he was living in my flat. He had, within 6 months, sold a bike that I had bought for him. He had beaten me up on several occasions, and he had terrified me half to death. Now, I didn't realise any of that was enabling. However, I wanted to help. I wanted to help. I wanted to support. I was a classic codependent. And what I had to do was look at where those patterns of me wanting to put things right and help people out, that really kind of empathic side of me that is so useful as a therapist, was actually manipulated or being spent. That empathy was being spent in the wrong place, not necessarily on the wrong person, because I don't think that those things defined that person, and I hope they're doing very well today. I really do. But at the time, the help would have been, I would have actually helped that person more, and myself, if I'd have probably finished the relationship and said, while you're like this, I can't deal with you, come back when you're sober, or come back when you're ready to be a decent human being. And because I had fairly low self-worth at the time, there were people who were saying, get away. What is it you're doing? Why is he in your house? And you can be in a situation like that before you've even realised it. We're very, very vulnerable, especially people who care. If you're here and you're worrying about somebody's drinking or drug taking, I can pretty much guarantee you're a caring, genuinely empathic person, And in that, you have to be aware of control tendencies. In that situation in my 20s, I didn't realise how much I wanted or I needed to control that situation. That's what made me a codependent. That's what made me abused in the end, was my inability to understand what was going on, yes. My naivety and youth, yes. However, I'd studied psychology, I'd studied film, I'd studied everything that was useful to know in this. And that was really difficult. That was a really difficult. I thought in that relationship, there was a particular occasion where he beat me so badly, the neighbours called the police, and I thought that I was going to die. I've never spoken about this on camera. I didn't even know I was going to. It's just sort of just come out. But I thought I was going to die. And I was so frightened and so upset for the abuser in that situation that I dropped the charges. We're going back to the, we're going back a long time, over 20 years, and I dropped the charges. And police woman who came to see me said something really interesting. She said, you may drop the charges, but the Crown can still prosecute. She was trying to get through to me, now I am convinced, she was trying to get through to me that I was enabling and he needed help. He needed the help and support that I couldn't give. In fact, he was going to beat me black and blue to try and get the point across that this isn't, him beating me black and blue hadn't even worked. But that's something in that. Something in what she said, the Crown can prosecute, made me realise that I wasn't protecting myself. For her to sort of intimate that the Crown might need to protect me if I wasn't willing to do it for myself, gave me a jolt.